to today's edition of Horse's Mouth Live, the Extraordinary Advisor Show. My name is Ellen Rogin, and as always, I have guests to help you grow in every area of your life, especially your business. And I'm really excited about our topic today and our special guest, John Yackel. And what we're going to talk about is how you can stay working with the next generation, with your clients, how to do that in ways that also serve them deeply by getting into conversations, even if you're less comfortable with them, or maybe you have been around estate planning and trust services, and really having family meetings with your clients and why this is so crucial. So John is a longtime friend, and we had lost touch for a while. But that's the thing about longtime friends, is even if there's been a gap in time, when you reconnect, it's just so wonderful. And I had seen on LinkedIn how John founded a new company, and thought it was a perfect opportunity to reach out and reconnect. So let me give you a little bit about John's formal background. John Yackel is the founder and CEO of Trucendent, and Trucendent was built for financial advisors and has modernized the delivery of estate planning and use of trusts, which needed modernizing, as they're really seeing, because their business is really exploding. Their business solution combines technology and a professional network of attorneys and corporate trustees for financial advisors. And John's been in the financial services industries in lots of different capacities for many years, so he knows the chair that you're sitting in. He knows how to help advisors grow their practices. Before founding Trucendent, he was head of strategic initiatives at Envestnet. Prior to that, he was with Prudential in their wealth management area, helping with business development. I met him prior to that when he was with a different financial services firm, and they didn't call them wholesalers, they called them regional directors, but he really helped me grow my advisory practice. So John, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thanks, Ellen. I'm really looking forward to the time today. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, John, it would be really great if you could share a little bit about why you decided to start Trucendent and kind of your personal story around this. It was fascinating to me when you shared it with me when we reconnected.
Sure, absolutely. I think most people will always ask, why start a company in the middle of a global pandemic? And they often ask, are you a little bit crazy to do this? I couldn't think of actually a better time now with hindsight. We've been at this now for a little bit over a year, but many of us need a kind of a personal, emotional connection to something that we have a lot of passion about, to really start something new in an endeavor in your business and career. So for me, this is the first time kind of leaving the large corporate America and being an entrepreneur and a business owner. I've had the pleasure of working with people like yourself, Ellen, that were independent business owners to help you grow your business and practice. And that perspective has only strengthened, I think, my resolve as I went through this. But the personal connection for me, where it really came to light for me, was my own estate planning experience within my family. It was a little bit over 10 years ago. And my father, who got sick and ultimately passed a year afterwards, he leaned in with me. I was the youngest of six. And when you're the baby of a family, you have the tendency to kind of be the glue and connect with the rest of your siblings. I was fortunate enough that I'm in the space, in the business, and have worked in both trust, financial planning, investment management, and the RIA community my entire career. And I saw how disjointed this process was for just a basic estate plan when we started with my dad's situation for our family. And I saw the accountant, the advisor, I saw a separate trustee, and then attorneys, all kind of providing independent individual advice. But it wasn't really brought together into one easy manner for either my father, and then obviously me working with him in kind of an advisory capacity, Ellen. And after he had passed, I was really happy that we, had really dug into some initial planning into this, because when you're going through a loss of a loved one, especially a parent, that's where the time and energy has got to be focused in on that. and not on, oh my gosh, what do we do? And first and foremost, we had a nice plan set up to make sure mom was taken care of. And, that's a kind of a common story that we often hear as people go through this. But it really hit me when my mom died just 2 years ago, this October. And, you go from planning to actually execution and administration of the overall estate plan of what was put into motion. So as I was watching this kind of unfold in 2019, and we moved into that process of administration of everything and gathering of documents one more time, meeting with the attorneys. I was personally acting as trustee in some of the cases, which hopefully we can talk a little bit about today, because I've got a very strong opinion about how financial advisors today tend to recommend family members to be trustees. It's a big red flag for me. I'll tell you why. And I really saw a huge need and an opportunity for financial advisors to lead this conversation more proactively in getting better plans together, getting clients prepared. And this huge convergence is coming now that we've got a couple of big things happening. We have the largest intergenerational wealth transfer in history coming upon us. The numbers, depending on how they slice it, you can look at it and say over the next 25 years, it's 100 trillion. Over the next 10 years, it's 60 trillion. And with 90% of individuals and heirs changing their financial advisor when they inherit the money from their parents' advisor, that to me was, all right, there's a huge opportunity. There's a huge challenge. There's a huge need, any way you want to look at it, to really start to provide a disruptive model in that technology and in the service model to really help advisors get in front of this, as opposed to get the call and say, there's either been an accident. Because the problem, Ellen, the longer you and I have been in this business, we hear a lot of sad stories. And, ultimately, it may sound a little hokey, but I really would like to make sure we're in a position of getting people prepared, that we're thinking about things more holistically as opposed to dealing with tragedy. And to me, getting people prepared and families prepared for proper preservation of wealth and how to pass it and do it in a very cohesive way is something that I hadn't really seen anybody doing out there. All the individual components have been delivered, but no one really brought it together. So that was kind of the why and the impetus for me to kind of start the company.
Gosh, that makes so much sense. And so, I'm thinking back to when I had my practice, and I wasn't an estate planning expert. I felt like I was doing a good job just saying like, hey, you need to get this done, and pushing them, because that is the thing that I saw people procrastinate on more than anything.
Right.
But so for advisors that are like, oh, I refer them to an attorney and it's all good, I make sure they get them done. Talk a little bit more about what might be falling through the cracks, or how they could do more to really serve their client and also support their business.
Sure. So a couple of things. I think, as you know me for the years, I'm a little bit of a geek when it comes to kind of like what the metrics and stats are that are out there, and the trends. So one big trend out there, and research that we've conducted, is that the actual individual client wants their financial advisor to be more proactive and lead the estate planning process and not just refer it. And they also have indicated that they're actually not receiving that service from their advisors. So I also look at that and say, okay, referrals, that's an important part of our business. I remember when you and I first met, you had a professional network of individuals to help augment your practice. Absolutely critical. But where we're at today in an environment where technology can help integrate those referrals and those networks, here's what I know is that the advisor, when you are using an outside professional, you as an advisor want to look very smart and educated about your client's needs, issues, and concerns, and that you're bringing a competent professional to the table, and that you stay aligned. Most of the time, the referrals happen, and it's 2 months later, and then you're kind of, hey, what happened with your plan? Have you executed your documents? Have you taken care of the will, the power of attorney, medical directives? Hey, can I talk to the attorney? Can I get the document? And I said, well, instead of having that be kind of a reactive process, let's let our collaborative technology be an indicator that will allow the two to continue to collaborate. And the reality is, estate planning is a continuous evolving plan, no different than any other plan an advisor puts in place. with their clients, they should be looking at this as a continuous check-in point from an advisory standpoint. So I'm a huge believer in independent advisors getting estate planning attorneys in their respective state that can provide the best possible advice. So we went out and have worked on a kind of an RFP process, and we're vetting those attorneys and bringing them on board into our network. They are collaborating with clients' existing attorneys to make sure that we actually capture all this and move it through the technology and the platforms that are out there. What I hope happens over time is that people don't look at estate planning like a different product or process than financial planning. I think that advisors are adopting financial planning more and more. That's great. But I think as those two things converge and advisors just look at planning in general, I think it's important, just little tips of always just thinking about, especially in today's world, is do you have a good grasp, and asking the end client this, a good grasp of where your documents are? What happens if something happens to you or a loved one? Naturally, we've been programmed around either investments or insurance legacy in the investment business. And depending on how you kind of approach that, the true planners are like yourself back in the day when you were with SFD. It was really cool because you were looking at the holistic nature of a client and their needs, not just their investment component. So I really do believe that the use of an independent outside attorney is absolutely critical and paramount. We don't want to practice law. We don't think that that's our position to be in, nor as a financial advisor as well. The laws are changing so frequently. And to your point about all the rhetoric on Capitol Hill now about different laws changing and thresholds changing, now's the time to make sure that you do have a great attorney that you're working with. And we've been able to vet them and bring them into the network as well.
I also see that since the beginning of the pandemic, and people have gotten much more comfortable with working with people over video, that when I still have people calling me for referrals for financial advisors, and I always ask, do you care where they live? And no one has said yes. It used to be, oh, no, I want them down the street. And a few people would be like, oh, it'd be nice to meet with them. But actually, I've had nobody make that a big issue at all. And I could see the more, certainly as an advisor, I had clients that moved to other parts of the country. But if you're building really a national practice, even if you're smaller, I think you have to, it's hard to find attorneys that are in the state where your clients live. And that's an issue, right? That the attorney has to be licensed where the client lives.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought this up. So in the last 18 months, here's one thing that we know with the pandemic. People are on the move. They're buying separate vacation homes in different states. You have people that are creating actually new businesses like I've done at a higher pace. But when you move states and or buy different residents in different states, you all of a sudden as an advisor, that's a trigger point to be able to say, okay, we've got to start revisiting someone's estate plan. And yes, you need an estate planning attorney in that state to be able to render the best possible advice, to know the nuances of not only the estate planning process, but also some of the tax nuances that go on with these things. And this is not meant for my $10 million clients and above. I'm talking about the sweet spot of the $1 to $10 million net worth type of clients. Our value proposition is simple: bring quality estate planning to all households. And that's what we have to scale and get through. And the only way to do that, Ellen, is you have to have a national footprint of attorneys in each state that will get through this. And one of the really cool things that I like on the innovation of this is we have a couple of attorneys that are in our network, and one in particular in Arizona and one in Florida, that are actually part of our network now, collaborating and working together on behalf of an end client because they have a complicated situation with dual residency and multiple businesses in different states. And all I know is that if you can get a really high quality level of professionals together to collaborate and do so in a manner that you're sharing and aligning information together, and that's what our responsibility at Trucendent is as well on the technology side, you're going to have better outcomes and better advice for individuals.
And I'm seeing how, the model of just an advisor being great at asset allocating or selling a tax strategy through insurance, and that's it, is just going to not be a differentiator. It's already not a differentiator, and it's not a good long-term strategy for sure. So adding, of course, planning, but this is such a crucial part of planning and to be able to get in there in terms of serving your clients, but in a way that's appropriate, where you have the legal people doing the legal stuff, but you're coordinating it. Because as you said, I mean, if there's when there's ultimately someone in the family dies, if you can have helped facilitate that, hopefully their heirs will stay with you. But even if not, you've done like such an important thing for somebody.
Yeah, the neat thing is that there's so much opportunity for us to use different type of technology and digital engagement tools to get the beneficiaries and the kids and the next generation engaged with their parents' advisor, which a lot of times people will say, not for me. I have different needs, and many of them are doing their own type of self-directed brokerage accounts. Some of the millennials in there, everybody feels that they're afraid of getting them engaged. The research is clear. The millennials actually are seeking professional advice more and more now in the pandemic than they were before. And because of the fact that they're opening up a lot of these different type of accounts, that just lent to greater complexity, I think, within their own individual lives. I think what we'll see over time, I'd mentioned this a little bit earlier about just even the professional nature and services, that I don't know why, and I've asked a lot of advisors of this and have taken surveys of why, as an advisor, when you're asked in estate planning, do you say just choose a family member to be the trustee? And a lot of them, what I will say is they answer that, well, we want a family member to be a steward, if you will, for carrying the estate forward. Well, that's not what a trust administrator is really handed and responsible for doing. And when you're an individual family member and you've got a sibling that you've got to now be a trustee of their account, and your responsibility is overseeing the fiduciary responsibility of the account, working with a financial advisor potentially on the outside, handling the taxes and administration of it, and handling disbursements of what's fair and equal. You're a family member. This is a brother, a sister, an aunt, uncle, a nephew or niece that you're involved with. And you're now asked to be the trustee to handle all those duties. That's a bit overwhelming for anybody. And like I said before, and I opened up the comments, I have that responsibility for many family accounts and non-family accounts. And I'm in the business, and it's overwhelming, Ellen. And it's a major responsibility that I would tell advisors to really think carefully. So we went out into that space and we did an RFP of 30 different corporate trust administrators that are really friendly with financial advisors. And there's a terminology that many of you may or may not be aware of, but it's called a delegated or a directed trust. You as a financial advisor have the ability to still maintain the ability to manage the client's expectations, work with them in the investment management component, and work with that corporate administrative trustee in our platform with the attorney in a really aligned way to provide better advice ongoing. And I say ongoing because the platform in of itself, the technology, has to allow for the facilitation of information between all the different fiduciaries. But I'm going to steal one of your words earlier, wholesaler and regional director. You had mentioned that's how we met many years ago. And as my mom used to call it, many moons ago. Here's the reality is I need wholesalers and regional directors, and they are part of my team that actually work with advisors in making this all come together. Because what happens is, regardless of all the technology we put on our desktops, and we get triggers and alerts as advisors, at the end of the day, you're working with clients, human beings. And to be able to be conversationally competent on how to have that conversation with them in estate planning and engaging the next generation, that's an art. And balancing the art and skill of delivering high quality estate planning requires you as an advisor and us as well to kind of embrace coaching, teaching, development, education components of our practice. And honestly, that's the most rewarding for me. For as much as I'm a fintech type of development company, what I'm most proud about is working with those professionals that help teach the skills to advisors to really bring this into their practice, because that's really where we all really feel like we make a better difference at times. Technology is a facilitator.
Yeah. No, you're preaching to the choir. I mean, a lot of the work that I'm doing now is helping advisors communicate more empathetically and more with more influence, and really serving their clients that way. Because to me, if you're not doing that, you're not going to be in business for very long. And it's rewarding. It feels good. Clients, you're making a bigger difference. As importantly with that. I'm really glad about that. And it is important to think about, these being able to ask clients these questions that I'm sure you're sharing with the people in your network. I mean, what are some, if we could just give for the people watching today, what are some good questions you could ask, kind of discovery questions to a client about what their goals are with their plan, or when they're thinking about whether it's assigning people for these roles? What are a few good questions that advisors could work with their clients?
Sure. One of the ones that jumps out at me is, look, I'll first set the table a little bit. I'll make the assumption that most advisors have moved to the point where they definitely have multiple decision makers in the room together, and they're not just dealing with one of the people if you have a couple. The definition of family has clearly changed over the last decade or two. So it's important to understand, I call it the definition of the family, because we're not into the traditional nuclear family of husband and wife that many advisors like ourselves that have been in the business for a long time have been taught originally. You've got to rewire your brain a little bit and actually really engage the family members, not just one or two, and really kind of dig down and ask, who do you feel responsible for? Tell me about your family, the extended family, and really continue to peel that back. And I kind of think, I'm a very visual person. If you remember, Ellen, I was always had the dry erase marker and would find your board and just start drawing pictures, and it helped me get through these things. And for me, I think of asking goals and engaging your clients through painting the picture of the family tree and looking at it through each person's lens. So naturally, the traditional way was, all right, we're going to talk to the patriarch or matriarch and find out what's important to them. And then that's it. Well, to me, once you paint that picture of what that family tree looks like, you've got a really awesome opportunity to really go through and say, okay, I've noticed Ellen is on this tree, and let's go. We want to talk to Ellen. And advisors that embrace that for asking for permission about why they want to be able to engage the other people that are part of this family tree, because the family tree might not be actually of straight lineage. It could be people that they feel responsible for, in-laws that are aging, that are getting through this, that are financially in a situation that need help. And as that really starts to kind of come together, I love that question around who do you personally feel responsible for? Tell me more about your family structure. What's important to you on values? I know you and I used to embrace some of the other, what's important for you here and now and later, and get into some of these other questions. I think the people that are better profilers of the psychology of the family, as opposed to, hey, can you send me your statements, are the ones that have more meaningful relationships in being great advisors that make the transition to financial and estate planning very easily.
Yeah, good. I love that. What else do you think, John, is important for advisors to know in this area, is kind of just to tie a bow around this?
Sure. I mean, my big thing is when you look at this and you go through any story of incorporating something that appears to be very complex, and it is, right? You're talking about technology, you're talking about estate planning attorneys in different states, you're talking about corporate fiduciaries and trustees handling complicated situations. My job is going to be to make that easy to deploy and administer ongoing for the financial advisor, but I like to put that aside for a moment. And I encourage advisors to think critically about taking the little steps first. And that is, how do you incorporate these type of concepts and asking questions with your clients in the process of, if you're just predominantly more investment advisory focused and you want to get into this area, we tend to look at it and say, all right, let's make sure that the financial affairs are in order. Is the will established? And do you need a review of the will? Because people that have bought online wills, they need to be reviewed. Because if you're identifying a trust vehicle within the will and it's not properly done, you're going to have to unwind that as an advisor, or you're going to be involved with it with the attorney, and you're going to have some expense later. So October is National Estate Planning Month. it's just great. It's always on top of my mind, Ellen, to sit there and say, I think every month is in my mind, but naturally so. But I think as October kind of comes in, because it's always the end of the year, you have the rhetoric going on in DC. It's a great time to really lean in and check in on those affairs of certain things. And typically people look at it and they say, all right, my will, my power of attorney, my medical directives, are they appropriate? Well, here's the problem. You have to make sure that your beneficiaries are properly designated. And I know I saw you nod your head and you've seen this before, and there are sad stories that people have a will and they have their beneficiaries that they think are designated properly in their custodial accounts, and the two are not enmeshed, and then you're off to probate. And it becomes a challenging situation. So having a harmonious plan is not as hard as we all think. So I like to do kind of the review process and tell advisors, engage, companies like ours that can work with you. And that's where I've been able to hire some individuals that do a little bit of, power planning, review some documentation before we really go full in and engage the attorneys. We really kind of look at that and review the advisor's practice to say, where is it appropriate to take those little steps in helping clients before thinking about, wow, how do we take this really complicated process in your mind and incorporate this into my entire practice? It's an important thing to bite this off in small chunks.
Yeah, for sure. And I am reminded of someone I talked to, someone I used to work with, younger guys, got two younger kids, actually an attorney by background and doesn't have wills, doesn't have powers of attorney. I'm like, oh,
wow.
Well, I've done this. I'm like, at least get something. And so, and I remember right before I left my practice, there was a very wealthy couple, had teenage kids and nothing. It was like, oh my God, and so it's not uncommon. We know that people procrastinate on this, of any area that I dealt with my clients, this more than ever. And I saw it with my husband and I too. It took us years to redo our plan. We finally just did it.
We all see it, Ellen. I mean, the interesting thing, even for us that are in the business, it's easy to neglect and say, I'll get to it. Financial and estate planners will often say, look, we've written great plans, but we haven't been able to execute and take them all the way through because it requires work and administrative effort. And to me, that to fulfill that opportunity and obligation and help advisors get those plans in place with the best professionals out there, to me, that's extremely rewarding. And I think it's great work that we can do together, working with advisors. I don't want to be in a situation of going direct, never will. Going through financial advisors has been my entire 29, coming on 30 years of a career. And I believe in independent advice. I believe in the financial advisor's role. But I also am cognizant of the fact that the advisors have so much asked of them, whether it's their home office, if they're in a big broker dealer, if they're in a wirehouse, or even the independent RIA. The independent RIAs that I love working with tend to be the ones that are the ones that ask for the most help. And they're willing to do so and not get caught up in a lot of the different administrative burden of saying, well, I don't know if I can really get this approved. They look at it and start with a client need. I need help. And that's where that often starts. And that's what we're seeing at the bigger firms now, where individual advisors have seen some of our work product, Ellen, and they lean in and they're like, all right, I have a client situation and I really want to help. But once you do one or two of these, and advisors that have 100, 200 families that they work with, the question becomes, how do I take this to all families and build a scalable business? What I will tell you, the capitalist inside of me, if I'm an advisor and a business owner and I want to eventually monetize my business and sell it, and like you did, Ellen, you advisors go through this transition. Your book of business, your work product, everything you've built in your entire career is more valuable if you institute estate planning and trust into your space, because the entity or individual that wants to buy your book of business clearly sees that you've already reached the next generation. Because what's happening is net present value of books of business are being evaluated, and you're going to sit there, and if you can't answer how you've reached the next generation and tried to secure those relationships, the value of your business starts to degrade. But if you sat there and said, no, we have a methodical estate planning process that reaches every level of the various people involved in the estate plan, and we're doing our best to be able to solve those problems, identify goals and objectives, and find solutions and engage them. I tell you, I know if I was buying the business, that would be compelling for me, because I would see continuity in the business.
Yeah, great. Beautiful. So, John, if people want to learn more about Trucendent and the work that you do there, where should they go?
Gotcha. So thanks for that softball, right? You teed that up and I appreciate it. So we've got truecendent.com is the best place. Typically, we've got some nice videos out there for people to start to take a look at. We've got a lot of content from our partners, from our attorneys, and also our corporate trustees, all geared around you, the financial advisor. We've got a contact us button. I always tell people, feel free to reach out. We're seeing a lot of things, Ellen, that come through where we might have enterprises that want to say, how do I do this across my whole firm? But the majority of the stuff that comes through are individual problems that people are saying, can you give me a call and can you help us out? And those are very rewarding because we can jump on them very quickly. And we've got a LinkedIn profile through Trucendent, as well as my LinkedIn profile. I tend to put a lot of different things out there from a blog and various posts around estate planning. It's in our blood, so to speak.
Great. So go check out Trucendent.com and connect with John Yackel on LinkedIn. And John, thank you so much for being here. It's always great to spend time with you.
Ellen, you're the best. I really appreciate it. Great seeing you. And everybody, thanks for listening in today. Hope we can help you out in any possible way.
Yeah, and I will echo that. Thank you. Thank you for being here with us today. As always, I am grateful to have you here. My name is Ellen Rogin. And if you want more information about me or the programs that I'm doing, you can go to ellenrogin.com. And if you go to ellenrogin.com/horse's mouth, you can download my special report, What Extraordinary Advisors Know That Others Don't. And the question to ponder today is, how big of a positive impact are you willing to make? Remember, be great and create